Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Tuesday. This is Seattle Now. It's been more than a month since President Donald Trump signed his big, beautiful bill into law. There's been a lot of conversation about how this law will affect things like Medicaid, the national debt, and immigration enforcement, but the law may also affect the cost of energy for Washingtonians. Seattle Times climate reporter Conrad Swanson will explain why. But first, let's get you caught up. Police say homicides are on a downward trend in King County after a spike in 2023. The number was lower in 2024 and has continued to drop even further this year, according to the Seattle Times. King County has 22% fewer homicides this year than it did at this point last year. It's part of a national trend towards safer cities. A sample of 400 cities shows a 20% decline in fatal violence from last year to this year. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson says the state is evaluating its options to protect solar power from the Trump administration. Last week, the EPA said it was terminating the Solar for All program. It aims to help low-income communities get affordable electricity from the sun. Washington would lose more than $150 million if the administration succeeds at clawing back the congressionally mandated funding. The head of the EPA called Solar for All a boondoggle and a grift. And Washington State is creating a directory of businesses owned by LGBTQ people. The goal is to get them more visibility and possibly more business from state agencies. Businesses have to meet certain requirements to be certified by the state. They must be for-profit, and LGBTQ people must own a majority of the business and be in charge of daily operations. The state legislature set aside $300,000 in the previous budget cycle to create the program. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. President Trump's biggest accomplishment since he returned to office has been the passage of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. The massive and deeply controversial legislation makes sweeping tax changes and cuts to government programs, including in the energy sector. Trump's stance against renewable energy and his support for fossil fuels has led to a dismantling of subsidies and support for green energy put in place by the Biden administration. Seattle Times climate reporter Conrad Swanson is here to help us understand how much these changes might cost Washingtonians. Conrad, glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So first off, what are some of the most significant changes aimed at infrastructure being built here in Washington state out of this bill?
Yeah, it's a really sweeping bill. People are still finding out what it does and to what degree. It'll do things like cut SNAP or Medicaid, add trains to our national debt. But in the renewable energy sector, it does a couple of things. On the larger scale, it gets rid of investment tax credits. So that's going to be millions and millions of dollars of rebates or credits for large utility scale like wind or solar or battery type projects.
Washington state has a law in place called the Clean Energy Transformation Act, also known as CETA. What is the aim of this law, and how does this bill turned law complicate that now?
CETA basically means that we need to transition away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy. That means shutting down all of our coal plants. That means shutting down our natural gas plants, things of that nature. I think by 2045 is when we basically have to have that transition through. And the complicating factor here is that Trump's budget bill just jacked up the price for new renewable energy products. So we are required as a state to only use renewable energy in the years to come. And the price for that renewable energy is now increased quite a bit.
Okay, a lot of this sounds like it's happening above my head. As a regular consumer of electricity here in the city, Conrad, what are some of the things I'm going to notice right away?
I think the first couple of things you might notice would be the disappearance of individual level tax credits or rebates. If you were thinking about buying a heat pump or installing rooftop solar, I think there was a $7,500 electric vehicle rebate. That's going to be out. You'll probably notice that if you were on the market. It's not like cars are inexpensive at the moment anyway. And that is money out of your pocket that this federal government could have otherwise given you. But also, if you decide, because those rebates are no longer available, not to install rooftop solar, not to install a heat pump, you're going to have probably just a less efficient system. So your rates are going to just be more expensive. Generally speaking, these heat pumps, solar, stuff like that can cut your monthly bills year after year. So they pay themselves off after a while. Those are the most immediate impacts. And then in the years down the road, you're probably going to notice rate increases depending on who your utility is. We're still waiting to see in what amounts or when those might kick in as well.
Okay, so it's basically taking away a lot of the programs that may have incentivized people to put in some of these energy saving things into their homes. And in addition, we will pay more for electricity. So, from your reporting, what parts of this law do those in Washington's energy sector think are good business? Is there anything redeemable in here that the energy sector can point to?
I asked a member of the Department of Commerce here in Washington State, like, what good comes from this? Like, where can you see some silver linings? And it was a Zoom chat, and he kind of looked at me. He says, "I'm really surprised you can ask that with a straight face." And so the folks that I've spoken to have really racked their brains to try to find something good out of this. We're required to transition towards renewable energy, and this just made renewable energy more expensive, more cumbersome, more difficult to obtain. So, really, it's just a huge roadblock in our path. I have yet to see a whole lot of benefit that's offered by this sort of package.
All right, and to be fair, even before this bill, we knew that energy prices would be going up in Seattle. Last year, the city council approved two price increases from Seattle City Light, in part due to wholesale energy prices going up and more extreme weather events. How do these things factor in?
Well, they really just compound. I mean, it's kind of an argument in favor of saying this really isn't the right time to be throwing another block in our path, right? We have a lot of challenges in our way right now. Global warming is making it so our hydropower is not performing like it used to, and that was a big cause of why we've had to raise our rates as well. So you're right; these rates are going up. Our demand is increasing. Our supply isn't keeping pace. And we've got these massive companies that are installing things like these data centers that are very power hungry, very water hungry, further complicating the picture. And so removing these renewable energy subsidies or tax credits really just kind of compounds all that pain.
How are people in Washington's energy space thinking about this? I mean, I know we've already talked about the fact that they don't find anything redeeming in this bill, but are they hoping that a different administration might come in and overturn some of this? Are they just resigned to the future at this point?
I mean, you'll get a lot of folks saying, "Hey, we'll see how the midterms go," or "Let's wait till 2028." But the fact of the matter is that this is such a big hit to this industry that had just been booming under President Joe Biden, that the damage being done now can't just be undone after an election, right? These are billions and billions of dollars worth of projects and investments that take years of due diligence and permitting, and it's not that easy just to snap your fingers and get an investor to say, "Oh, I'll give you $600 million. Go build something." So people are going to hold off. It's going to cool the market down. And I think as long as a lot of these policies or the people who put these policies remain in place, investors or developers might not be too keen on coming and saying, "Hey, let's see what we can build. Let's see if this is worth our time." They might just turn their attention elsewhere.
How does Washington stack up to other states with regards to energy sector and the impact from this bill? Are we particularly out of whack?
There's a little bit of good and a little bit of bad there, right? Like our interaction with CETA, our requirement that all of our new energy really come from renewable energy is going to make for some short-term pain because of the disappearance of those tax credits and such. However, one person with the State Department of Commerce told me there is maybe a little bit of a silver lining in that. Okay, we're going to have this short-term pain. Things are going to be more expensive. However, it's not like fossil fuels are getting any cheaper anymore, and they're also pretty volatile in the market themselves. And so it's maybe just better to make this transition now, suffer through the pain, and then it'll be more affordable in the run, rather than trying to hold on to those coal plants, hold on to those natural gas plants, because 10, 20 years down the road, I think that's going to be more expensive. It's going to clearly hamper our air quality and make climate change worse. So transitioning now, even with the greater expense, is probably still the smarter thing to do.
You know, I was hearing something about the increased likelihood of brownouts. How would that factor in here, Conrad?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question. And people are pretty concerned about that. I think the logic basically goes that if you make it more difficult to build renewable energy projects, you make it more difficult for the state and local utilities to catch up with the demand for energy. And then that just kind of widens the gap between the demand and the supply. And so when those moments spike during moments of high heat or very cold temperatures, that's when our greater risk comes of these blackouts or brownouts. So I think it makes that problem or that risk a little bit more pronounced.
All right. Well, Conrad, before I let you go with the price increases on the way, what can people do to save money on electricity? I know I'm always hounding the people in my household to shut the refrigerator and turn the lights off.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's about all I've got to offer as well.
It's a manual problem.
Yeah, exactly right. Just try to use as little as you can because at the end of the day, I mean, you gotta have your refrigerator running. You gotta have your AC or your fans running when these heat waves hit or whatever. So like you can only reduce it so much.
Okay. Seattle Times climate reporter Conrad Swanson, really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Shane Mailing. It was edited by Andy Hurst. Our production team also includes Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, Vaughn Jones, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.